What should we talk about in the PLC today?
I'd really like to talk about classroom management.
Sure. What's the issue?
My students have become really talkative lately, and I'm having trouble getting them to listen during the lesson.
Are you using your rules and consequences?
I am, and the consequences do work, but I feel like I should be able to stop minor misbehaviors before it gets that far.
Well, we did just get back from a break, and they need to practice their procedures and transitions.
You only have things like time, and you gotta...
You all know me? You know what I do? The host of Launch Your Classroom. I can help you get this class under control, but it won't be easy. Disruptive class can swallow you whole. But if you trust me, we'll get this solved. The talking, the disrupting, the whole thing under control.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm ready to get started.
Welcome to Launch Your Classroom. I'm Kyle Pope. Let me ask you a question. How do you manage misbehavior in the classroom? Are you being reactive or proactive? If you're only responding with consequences, then you're missing a vital step. Don't get me wrong, consequences are a fundamental part of any classroom management plan. However, they do have some downsides. For instance, you can risk damaging your relationship and rapport with a student if consequences are overused. But more importantly, consequences are reactive by nature. It's much more effective to be proactive when faced with negative student behavior. By using intervention techniques, you can stop most misbehavior before it occurs or escalates. Here's the good news. You've already been using preventative measures by creating rules and reteaching them. However, there are additional methods that you can add to your teaching toolbox to increase your effectiveness as a classroom manager. So let's take a look at our first intervention strategy. This misbehavior intervention technique is called proximity control. Your goal when using this strategy is to prevent potential student misbehavior before it develops or escalates by changing your physical location in the classroom. In order for proximity control to work, it's important to be attentive to your students and their actions during any given part of your lesson. You should visually scan each area of the room where students are present. Make sure that you're observing your students' actions regardless of class activity. This could include direct instruction, whole class work, and individual work. Remember, you want to prevent misbehavior, so monitor for clues that misbehavior is about to occur. When you feel that a student is off task, distracted, or about to be disruptive, follow these steps. Number 1, move toward the student's desk or workspace. Do not stop your instruction as you move. Number 2, once you're close to the student's workspace, but not overly close, pause your movement, then continue to teach from that location. Number 3, after a few minutes, you should see the student refocus on the lesson or classwork. Number 4, move slowly away from the student while continuing to teach. And number 5, return to your previous teaching position with no instructional time lost. Proximity control is extremely effective because students will feel compelled to behave properly when they detect a teacher is close to them. After all, being in close proximity to an authority figure is uncomfortable. Rarely will a student continue to misbehave when they know that a teacher is watching them intently. Keep in mind that you may need to stand close to the student for several moments for the strategy to work, and you may also need to return to the student if they're re-engaging in the misbehavior. But remain consistent, and proximity control will become one of your best intervention tools.
There's a legal theory that states, in order for a crime to take place, 3 things must be present: means, motive, and opportunity. Of course, most of the time misbehaviors are not crimes, but the theory does highlight a universal trend in human behavior. Let's start out with whether a student has the means to misbehave. There are multiple ways students can misbehave in class. Identifying potential means of misbehavior, such as cell phone use, allows you to employ strategies and create policies limiting those means and thus reducing unwanted behaviors. One great strategy that we like to use is cell phone volunteers. Next, ask what motivates your students to misbehave. Misbehavior doesn't exist in a vacuum. Students are reacting to internal and external forces like boredom or a desire for attention. Rather than only resorting to consequences for disruptive behavior, be intentional with the way you reinforce positive behavior by using classroom reward systems. And when you focus your lessons on active learning, your students won't have time to be bored. Lastly, pinpoint what in your classroom environment creates the opportunity for misbehavior. Take some time to identify the opportunities for distraction that exist within your classroom and create strategies and structures to combat them. Strategies such as proximity control and seating charts are very helpful because you're removing the opportunity for your students to act inappropriately without serious consequence. When trying to stop a misbehavior, consider the means, motive, and opportunity in your classroom that facilitate the unwanted action. Addressing just one of these three factors will allow you to begin creating successful interventions and promoting a positive learning environment.
Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Well, I thought I would check out the new ice cream
Well,
place.
what are you waiting for?
That sounds really good.
I'm ready.
Proximity control, full ahead.
Ice cream flavors, vanilla, blueberry, and raspberry. You have coconut ice cream. It's played. You can get ice cream, which is awesome. Now what's
I think we're going to need more strategies.
Sometimes student misbehavior is completely unintentional. When this occurs, it's usually a whole class issue related to inattention. For example, maybe you're using a turn and talk strategy to engage your students in active learning and they get a little too engaged in the talking part. You try to get their attention, but it only results in you wasting your breath and becoming frustrated. Instead of escalating the issue by giving out consequences, you need a way to intervene with an intention-getting strategy. Here are two of our favorites. Number 1, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. This technique is especially good for elementary school students. It's really simple and based on a call and response.
1, 2, 3, eyes on me.
1, 2, eyes on you.
A simple rhyme will easily stick in your students' minds and help them to remember exactly what you want them to do. Feel free to add in some hand gestures for even more engagement. Number 2, clap once. This one is more useful for high school and middle school students. It doesn't require them to say a single word, but rather relies on making a noise with their hands.
Class, clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap 3 times if you can hear me.
Clapping is a great way to signal students that you need their attention. It has the added benefit of creating positive peer pressure to focus on the teacher. With both of these strategies, make sure that you teach them before you use them. It's important for your students to know that they're intended to get their attention and that everyone is expected to participate. Then, you'll be ready to get your students refocused in no time.
Every week, you prepare lessons for your students with a goal in mind, helping students understand the content. You spend hours perfecting your lessons, knowing that students have limited knowledge or none at all in regards to the lesson you are teaching. It is well understood that students need time to develop their skills within the classroom. Students don't know from birth how to recite the alphabet or how to use the quadratic formula. These things are taught. So why do we as teachers assume that students automatically know how to behave? Like everything else in the classroom, students must be taught and made aware of what bad behavior looks like and what good behavior looks like. We cannot expect students to know how to behave correctly the moment that they enter the classroom. The original goal of education was to produce informed citizens that could contribute to their societies. Not only does society need good, law-abiding citizens, but these citizens must also be responsible. One question to keep in mind is, how are you as a teacher contributing to this goal? Are you teaching your students how to behave through example and practice? Or are you assuming that they already know how to behave? As you go into the next few weeks of your class, think about what you can do to help create model citizens in your classroom. Praise the behavior you see that you wish for all of your students to exhibit. Focus on the positive portrayals of behavior, not the negative that you witness. Students may not remember the lessons that you teach in years to come, but encouraging good behavior with positivity is something that will have a lasting impact on their lives and the greater society.
Misbehavior should be addressed immediately when it occurs. However, it's better to be proactive with intervention than it is to be reactive with severe consequences. Intervening before a situation escalates helps to create a more positive classroom atmosphere and will also help you gain valuable instructional time. So start using the strategies that we've laid out in this video as a springboard to help you prevent classroom management issues from intensifying. This month on Launch Your Classroom, we're going to continue our discussion on misbehavior interventions. We're going to provide you with another strategy that focuses on redirecting students. Then we will sit down with an expert to discuss the importance of understanding misbehavior. We're also going to have a wellness segment about managing conflict when it arises. So be sure to like this video and to subscribe to our channel to get all of our upcoming professional development content. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on Launch Your Classroom.
So as we can see from the historical documents, the purchase of Alaska was somewhat controversial to American citizens at the time.
I want to go to basketball camp, but Jimbo's still
On the one hand, you had people who were happy to increase the land size of the United States. On the other hand, you had people who saw Alaska as an uninhabitable land that was a huge waste of money. Take a quick moment to talk to your partner and decide if you think Alaska was a good purchase or a bad purchase. Okay, class, I want to hear your answers. Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap 3 times if you can hear me. You know, I used to be hesitant in intervening with misbehaviors.
I can't imagine why.